The stone floor was cold, even through the layers of black fabric. Severus Snape did not wake with a dramatic gasp or a shout. He woke the way a man wakes when he has already died once in his mind slowly. Confused and angry, that breath had returned at all. Pain came first. Not sharp, not clean, but deep and spreading, like something dark blooming inside his chest. His throat burned. Every swallow felt like broken glass. For a long moment, he thought this was punishment, some final joke by fate. He remembered the fangs, the rush of warmth spilling down his neck, the look in Potter's eyes as he fled. He remembered thinking, very calmly, that it was fitting. A man like him did not deserve a clean end, but the pain did not fade. It stayed. That was how he knew he was alive. Snape opened his eyes to darkness, broken by a single trembling light. A candle, floating. Someone was holding it, badly, as if their hand shook too much to keep it steady. Shapes formed slowly. Stone walls. The ruined edges of the Shrieking Shack, and then faces. Minerva McGonagall stood closest. Her mouth set into a hard line that failed to hide the shock in her eyes. Behind her were Kingsley Shacklebolt and, surprisingly, a young healer from St. Mungo's, wand already glowing with diagnostic charms. No Potter, no Dark Lord, just survivors. Well, Snape rasped, hating how weak his voice sounded. If this is the afterlife, it's disappointingly bureaucratic. McGonagall let out a sharp breath that might have been a laugh or a sob. "Don't speak," she said, too quickly. "You were. We thought." "Yes," Snape said. "So did I." "Kay." They told him later what had happened. How Nagini's venom should have killed him within minutes. How his own dark magic, woven into his blood over years of double lives and half-truths, had slowed it. How Potterdam him had returned with reinforcements instead of running. How a desperate healer had tried something experimental. Because there was nothing left to lose, Snape listened without comment. Survival had never been part of the plan. He had lived his life like a man walking toward a wall, one step at a time, never looking away. Now the wall was gone, and he stood awkwardly in the open, unsure where to go. The war ended while he lay in recovery. Voldemort fell. The castle burned and rebuilt itself in the slow, stubborn way only Hogwarts could. Names were carved into stone. Others were spoken softly and then avoided. Like old wounds, Snape's name was spoken often, but never comfortably. When he was finally strong enough to walk, the Ministry wanted him questioned. The Order wanted him praised. Some wanted him imprisoned. A few wanted him dead. Snape endured it all with the same thin-lipped silence he had perfected as a teacher. Veritasorum confirmed what Dumbledore had already known. Memories shone in cold silver strands filled rooms with uncomfortable quiet. Hero was not a word anyone said out loud. Traitor was said less and less. In the end, they did not know what to do with him. So they did what people always did with inconvenient truths. They sent him away. Hogwarts reopened in autumn. Snape did not return as a professor. Instead, he was given a small stone house on the edge of Hogsmeade, officially to recover. Unofficially, to be kept where everyone could see him, and no one had to deal with him closely. Children whispered when he passed. Parents stared. Some bowed stiffly. Others turned away at night. Snape slept poorly. Dreams came whether he wanted them or not. Lily's laugh. Dumbledore's calm disappointment. Voldemort's red eyes. And always, always, Potter's face as he fled the shack, carrying a truth that had cost too much. One evening, weeks after the term began, there was a knock at his door. Snape opened it to find Harry Potter standing there alone, hands shoved awkwardly into his pockets. Older somehow than the boy who had once glared at him across a classroom. "I thought," Potter said, then stopped. I mean, they said you lived here. Snape looked at him for a long moment. He felt no anger, no satisfaction, just a tired, aching curiosity. Yes, he said at last. It seems I have developed a bad habit of surviving. Potter nodded. I didn't come to say thank you. Not just that, he swallowed. I came because I don't know what comes next. And you might. Snape stepped aside, opening the door wider. Then come in, he said quietly. We are both rather unpracticed at what comes next. Harry did not sit at first. He stood near the door like a student waiting for detention to begin, eyes drifting around the small room. It was nothing like the dungeon office he remembered. No shelves of glittering potions, ingredients, no looming desk. Just books, stacked everywhere, some old and cracked, others newer and clearly untouched. The fire burned low, more for warmth than comfort. You're not teaching, Harry said, as if confirming a rumor he already knew. No, Snape replied. The castle has suffered enough this year. Harry gave a weak smile and finally sat down. McGonagall said it was your choice. Snape snorted softly. Minerva is being kind. Choices imply options. I was encouraged to live quietly. There was a silence then, thick but not hostile. It was different from the silences they used to share in classrooms, full of anger and unfinished punishments. This one felt cautious, like both were afraid to break it the wrong way. Harry leaned forward. I saw your memories. In the pensive, I know you didn't want me to. Few of my mistakes involved consent, Snape said flatly. I hated you, Harry said. He said it like a confession, not an accusation. I thought you enjoyed it, hurting me, reminding me of my dad. Snape's jaw tightened. Your father made it easy to hate him. You made it difficult not to see him. Harry nodded. I know, and I'm sorry. For what it's worth, that was unexpected. Snape had imagined this conversation 1,000 times in the weeks since he woke. None of them had included an apology from Harry Potter. It unsettled him more than anger would have. You survived, Harry continued, because of choices you made for someone who died a long time ago. That kind of loyalty. It doesn't just stop. Snape turned away, busying himself with the kettle. His hands shook slightly, and he hated that Harry might notice. Loyalty is a poor substitute for a life, he said. It kept me breathing, nothing more. Harry watched him. Maybe, but it also saved a lot of people, including me. The kettle began to whistle. Snape poured water into 2 cups without asking, the habit of hosting students dying hard. He handed one to Harry, who took it with a murmured thanks. They drank in silence. Outside, Hogsmeade was quiet. The war had left it wary, like a town that had learned the cost of noise. Snape found himself listening to the absence of shouting, of alarms, of spells cracking the air. Harry broke the quiet. They're rebuilding things, not just the castle. The ministry too. It's messy, Snape raised an eyebrow. Revolutions usually are. They want me involved, Harry admitted. Committees, symbols. I don't know how to be that person. Snape studied him. The boy had grown into a man too fast, burdened with victory he had never asked for. It was disturbingly familiar. Then don't be, Snape said. Heroes burn out quickly when forced to perform. Harry let out a breath he might have been holding for years. That's what I thought. But everyone keeps saying I owe it to them. You owe the dead nothing, Snape said sharply. They are beyond repayment. You owe the living only honesty. Harry smiled faintly. You always did give terrible motivational speeches. Yes, Snape said. And yet, here you are. They talked longer than either expected. About rebuilding, about those who didn't return. about guilt which clung like smoke no matter how far the fire was gone. When Harry finally stood to leave, the tension between them had softened into something unfamiliar and fragile. At Hogwarts, Harry said at the door, "They're rewriting history books. Properly this time." Snape stiffened. And your name will be there," Harry said. "Not in the shadows." Snape said nothing. Harry hesitated, then extended his hand. For a moment, Snape considered refusing. Old instincts urged him to keep distance, to maintain the bitterness that had defined him for so long. But survival had already broken the pattern. He shook Harry's hand. After Harry left, Snape sat alone by the fire, staring at the place where the boy had been. For the first time since the war, the future did not feel like an enemy. It felt empty and terrifying. Weeks passed. Autumn deepened. One morning, an official ministry letter arrived, sealed and heavy with implication. Snape opened it slowly. They were offering him a position. Not teaching. Not imprisonment. Something else entirely. Snape smiled thinly. It seemed fate was not done with him yet. The letter sat on the table for a long time before Snape touched it again. Ministry parchment had a particular smell, overprocessed. Faintly metallic, as if soaked in authority and dried in arrogance. He read the words a second time, then a third, as if they might change out of spite. Consultant. That was the word they had chosen. Not advisor. Not master. Consultant to the Department of Magical Law Enforcement, specializing in dark magic detection, counter curses, and post-war artifacts. It was a role designed to keep him useful but distant, valuable but never visible. They still didn't trust him. Sensible. Snape folded the letter and placed it beside his tea. He did not accept immediately. Old habits urged caution. He had spent too many years being used by powerful men who smiled while sharpening knives. Yet something in him, something raw and newly expostulating. The idea of fading quietly into irrelevance. On his first day at the ministry, heads turned. Some stared openly. Others pretended not to notice. A few whispered. Snape walked through it all with his spine straight and his expression carved from stone. He wore plain black robes, unadorned, refusing both mourning and celebration. He was not there to be forgiven. Kingsley Shacklebolt met him at the lift. "I'm glad you came," he said, voice steady. "Don't be," Snape replied. "It encourages expectations." Kingsley smiled anyway. "We need people who understand what nearly destroyed us." Snape almost said, "I was what nearly destroyed you." Instead, he nodded. His work was quiet, precise, and unsettling. He identified cursed objects that had been overlooked, traced spells layered with intention rather than power, and dismantled dark enchantments designed not to kill, but to corrupt slowly. Younger Aurors watched him with a mix of awe and discomfort. He did not explain himself unless asked, and even then, only barely at night. He returned to his small house and brewed potions no one had requested. Antidotes, stabilizers, things meant to undo damage rather than cause it. He told himself it was habit. He did not examine the lie too closely. One evening, Hermione Granger arrived unannounced. She was polite, of course, painfully so. She brought documents, notes, and 3 separate justifications for why she needed his help reforming potion regulations. She also brought curiosity she tried badly to hide. "You don't trust me," Snape said, scanning her neatly organized parchment. Hermione flushed. "I trust your expertise. I'm still learning about the rest." "An excellent instinct," Snape said. "It may keep you alive." She blinked, then smiled despite herself. "Harry said you'd say something like that." They worked late into the night. Hermione challenged him. Not with arrogance, but with careful logic. It annoyed him. It impressed him. It reminded him painfully of what Hogwarts might have been if he had been a better man. After she left, Snape sat alone, staring at the empty chair. Regret crept in, not sharp, but persistent. He had survived, yes. But survival came with an accounting news of his involvement at the Ministry spread. Letters arrived. Some were short and venomous. Others were cautious, grateful, even apologetic. One, written in a shaky hand, thanked him for saving a son who would never know his name. Snape burned most of them then. One night, long after midnight, his mark burned. Not painfully, not urgently, just enough to remind him it was still there. Snape froze, breath shallow. The dark mark had faded since Voldemort's death, but it had never vanished completely. It was a scar, not a chain. Still, this was different. This was movement. Within days, reports surfaced of dark gatherings. Not followers of Voldemort, but imitators. Men and women who wore fragments of old ideology like costumes, believing power could be inherited without understanding its cost. The Ministry panicked quietly. Kingsley came to Snape personally. "They're calling him the Ash Lord," Kingsley said. "He's using old spells, dangerous ones." Snape's lips curled. "Then he is a fool." "Perhaps," Kingsley said. "But fools can still burn cities." Snape looked down at his left arm. For years, it had defined him. A brand of shame, of obedience, of loss. Now, it was a warning. "I will speak to them," Snape said. Kingsley frowned. "That's risky." "Yes," Snape replied, "which is why it must be me." As he prepared to step back into the shadows he had barely escaped, Snape felt something unfamiliar, not fear, but resolve. This time, he was not acting on orders. Not for a dead man. Not for a memory he was choosing. The first meeting took place in the ruins of an old manor, half swallowed by ivy and neglect. It was the kind of place dark wizards favored, grand enough to feel important, broken enough to feel justified. Snape arrived alone, precisely on time. His presence announced not by sound, but by the sudden tension in the air. They were waiting for him. 5 of them, cloaked, masks poorly enchanted, magic raw and undisciplined. Children playing at monsters. "You called," said the one in the center. He wore his confidence like armor, but his eyes flicked to Snape's arm. "I did not," Snape said calmly. "You called me? Whether you intended to or not." Murmurs rippled through the group. "You bear the mark," the man said. "You survived. That means something." "It means I made better choices than you will," Snape replied. Anger flared. Wands lifted. Snape did not draw his own. "You think we're imitating him," the man sneered. But Voldemort was weak. He trusted fear. We trust fire. Snape stepped closer. The air seemed to tighten around him. Voldemort failed because he mistook obedience for loyalty and cruelty for strength. You are repeating his mistakes without even understanding them. One of the younger witches hesitated. "Then why are you here?" Snape's voice dropped. "To end this before you destroy yourselves and take others with you." They laughed. That was their final mistake. Snape moved faster than any of them expected. Not with brute force, but precision. A wand flick disarmed one. A silent counter-curse collapsed another to the floor, choking on their own magic. He dismantled them the way a master brewer dismantled a flawed potion, step by step, calmly, ruthlessly. The leader backed away, eyes wide. "You're still one of us." Snape stopped inches from him. "I never was." Arus arrived minutes later. Snape did not wait for thanks. He left before the echoes faded. That night, he did not sleep. Memories pressed in. The manor smelled like Spinner's End, like old books and resentment. Like the boy he had been, angry and desperate to belong. He understood these fools too well, and that understanding frightened him. Days later, McGonagall requested a meeting. Hogwarts was quieter than he remembered. Cleaner, kinder perhaps. Or maybe he was simply seeing it differently. Minerva watched him carefully as he entered her office. "You put yourself in danger," she said. "Double quotes yes," Snape replied. "I have experience with that," she sighed. "The students are asking about you." "That is deeply concerning. They want to know the truth," she said gently. "Not the legend, not the villain." Snape looked at the window, at the grounds where Lily had once laughed, where children now walked without fear. "Truth is rarely kind." "No," McGonagall agreed. "But it is necessary." She offered him something then. Not a teaching post. Something smaller. Guest lectures. Occasional appearances. Honesty without permanence. Snape considered it longer than he expected. "I will not be gentle." "I would be insulted if you were," she said. His first lecture was awkward. Students stared as if a ghost had walked into the room. Snape spoke of dark magic not as temptation, but as consequence, of how every shortcut demanded payment, of how power taken too early hollowed the soul. Some students listened. Some didn't, but a few quiet, intense. Overlooked watched him the way he once watched others, hungry, angry. Afterward, a Slytherin boy lingered. "Sir," he said hesitantly, "can people like us change?" Snape studied him. Saw himself. Saw the crossroads. "Yes," Snape said at last, "but only if you stop lying to yourself first." As he left Hogwarts that evening, Snape realized something unsettling. He was no longer running from his past. He was standing in front of it. Winter came early that year. Snow settled over Hogwarts like a promise kept too late, softening the scars the war had left behind. Snape found himself returning more often than he intended. Sometimes to lecture, sometimes to consult. Sometimes with no excuse at all beyond a restlessness that refused to let him stay still. It was during one of these visits that the attack happened. Not on the castle. That would have been obvious. Crude. Instead, it was subtle. A student collapsed during breakfast, choking on magic that twisted inward instead of exploding outward. Panic spread fast. Snape was on his feet before anyone finished shouting. He recognized the spell immediately. A modified Solanker curse. Illegal. Unstable. Brilliant in the worst possible way. He didn't cast this. Snape snapped as healers rushed in. It was placed on him. McGonagall's face hardened. Inside the school. "Yes," Snape said, "by someone who knows exactly how wards breathe." The boy survived, barely, but the message was clear. The Ash Lord's followers were evolving, learning, and they were no longer. Afraid of sacred ground, Snape worked through the night, stripping the curse layer by layer. His hands moved automatically, muscle memory honed through years of forbidden study. When it was done, he leaned back, exhausted, aware of every eye in the room. "You saved him," Pomfrey said quietly. Snape said nothing. Saving people was still unfamiliar. It felt like wearing someone else's coat, useful, but not his. The investigation was ugly. Paranoia crept through the halls. Students eyed one another with suspicion. Old divisions threatened to reopen. Slytherin was watched too closely. Gryffindor bristled at authority. History repeating itself. Dressed in new robes, Snape saw it clearly. Because he had lived it, he requested permission to speak to a small group of students. Not houses, not favorites. Just those flagged as gifted in defensive and theoretical magic. McGonagall hesitated, then agreed. They met in an unused classroom. 10 students, nervous, curious. "You think darkness announces itself," Snape began. "It does not. It whispers. It flatters. It tells you that you are special, misunderstood, deserving of more. A few students shifted uncomfortably. That is how it begins, he continued. Not with hatred, but with entitlement. One girl raised her hand. Sir, were you entitled? Snape looked at her for a long moment. Yes, he said, and it nearly destroyed everything. The honesty landed harder than any threat. He spoke of mistakes without detailing crimes, of how intelligence without humility curdled into cruelty. He did not preach redemption. He spoke of cost. Afterward, Hermione cornered him in the corridor. You're changing things, she said. Whether you like it or not. Snape arched an eyebrow. I assure you, I like it very little. But that night, alone in his house, he found the silence less heavy. The Ash Lord revealed himself weeks later, not publicly, not dramatically. He sent a letter, old parchment, old language, an invitation wrapped in mockery. You survived the dark. Lord, let us see if you can survive the truth. Snape burned the letter after memorizing every word. They met beneath the city, in tunnels older than the ministry itself. The Ash Lord was younger than Snape expected, early 30s, cated. Calm, his magic hummed like a restrained fire. You're a relic, the man said pleasantly, but relics still have value. I buried my value with Voldemort, Snape. Replied the Ash Lord, smiled. No, you buried your loyalty. There's a difference. They talked. That was the dangerous part. Not spells. Not threats. Philosophy. The Ash Lord believed the war had failed because it was rushed, because power had been claimed too openly. He spoke of influence, of shaping generations quietly. Snape listened, and for the first time since the war, felt real fear. Not of death, but of recognition when the Ash Lord offered him a place. Not as a servant, but as an equal. Snape answered without hesitation. No, he said. I know where that road ends. The Ash Lord's smile vanished. Oh. My enemy. Snape nodded. I have been worse. As he walked away, wards collapsing behind him, Snape knew the final confrontation was coming. And this time, there would be no prophecy to hide behind. No dying wish to follow, only choice. The ministry did not want to hear it. They listened. Yes. They nodded. Yes. They filed reports and scheduled meetings and argued about jurisdiction. But when Snape told them the Ash Lord was not building an army, but an idea, their eyes glazed over. Ideas were harder to arrest. He's recruiting thinkers, Snape said flatly during one session. Students, scholars, the disillusioned, people who believe they are correcting history. Kingsley rubbed his temples, were stretched thin. The public barely trusts us as it is. Then you will lose, Snape replied, quietly. They did not like that. But they listened enough to give him limited authority. Unofficial channels, no headlines, no mistakes. It suited him. Snape began doing what he did best, moving between worlds. He attended lectures under assumed names, corresponded with scholars who skirted dangerous theory, left traps not of curses, but of logic. False premises that lured out those already leaning too far. It was exhausting. And familiar. One evening as he returned home, he found someone waiting at his door. Draco Malfoy. The Boyno man now looked thinner, quieter, stripped of the arrogance that had once filled every room. He did not sneer. He did not smirk. I didn't know where else to go, Draco said. Snape let him in without a word. Draco spoke of guilt, of nightmares, of a family name that felt like a curse. He spoke of being approached carefully, politely by people who promised restoration without cruelty. I didn't answer them, Draco said quickly, but they knew things I never told anyone. Snape closed his eyes briefly. They always do. Draco's voice cracked. I don't want to be that person again. You were a child forced to play a role written by cowards, Snape said. That does not excuse you, but it explains you. Draco nodded, tears unshed. What do I do? Snape placed a vial on the table. You walk away, and you let me handle the rest. The Ash Lord struck first. A series of coordinated attacks, not lethal, but humiliating. Ministry vaults exposed. Old secrets leaked. Corruption revealed just enough to rot trust from the inside. The public turned angry. Loud, dangerous. This is your fault. An undersecretary spat at Snape. Yes, Snape agreed. And I intend to finish it. The final plan was risky, illegal, personal. Snape would let himself be captured. They staged it perfectly. A false trail, a public arrest. The Daily Prophet howled with outrage. Former Death Eater apprehended in dark conspiracy. Snape read it calmly from his cell, lips curling. The Ash Lord came that night. You disappoint me, the man said, stepping into the shadows. I thought you were smarter. Snape looked up from his bench. I thought you were. The wards flared. The Ministry's men moved in. Spells exploded through the corridor, but the Ash Lord laughed. You still think this ends with me? He said softly. I am only proof of concept. Then he vanished, leaving behind fire and silence. The aftermath was brutal. Arrests, trials. Panic, but the idea had spread. Snape knew it. You could not jail a philosophy. Weeks later, Hogwarts closed briefly for safety. Students were sent home. Snape stood alone in the Great Hall, looking up at the enchanted ceiling. He had survived the war, survived Voldemort, survived himself. But survival was not victory. As he turned to leave, McGonagall's voice echoed behind him. Severus? He stopped. You've done enough, she said gently. Let others carry this. Snape looked at the doors, at the world waiting beyond them. I don't know how, he admitted. She smiled sadly. Then perhaps it's time you learned. That night, Snape made a decision that frightened him more than facing any dark wizard. He stepped back. Stepping back felt like standing on the edge of a cliff and choosing not to jump. For most of his life, Severus Snape had defined himself by purpose imposed from outside orders' debts, promises made to the dead. Without them, the days stretched uncomfortably wide. He stopped consulting for the ministry. Not abruptly, but firmly. Kingsley argued. Others accused him of abandoning them. Snape accepted it all with the same indifference he once reserved for insults in the classroom. I have spent my life reacting, he told Kingsley. I will not do so anymore. He returned to Hogsmeade full-time. The house felt different now, less like exile, more like shelter. He began a routine, morning walks before dawn, brewing potions not for war, but for lingering injuries sleep. Drafts for veterans, stabilizers for those whose magic still misfired under stress. He delivered them quietly, often without being seen. People noticed anyway. One afternoon, a letter arrived addressed simply. Severus Snape, not Professor, not Sir, just his name. The handwriting was familiar. Lily Evans' sister. Petunia's letter was short, stiff, and painfully polite. She wrote of her grandson magical, terrified, showing signs of unstable bursts. The family was afraid. The memory of magic still tasted bitter in her words, but desperation had worn down pride. Snape read it twice. A third time, he did not reply. Immediately, when he finally did, his response was equally restrained. Bring the boy, I will help. No explanations. No apologies. The child arrived a week later, small, green-eyed, in a way that twisted something, sharp inside Snape's chest. The boy did not cry. He watched Snape with cautious curiosity. You don't hate magic, Snape observed. The boy shook his head. I hate when it hurts. Snape nodded. Then we already agree on something. Teaching the boy was different. There was no classroom, no audience, just patience. Snape explained control not as dominance, but as listening. The magic settled. The boy smiled. Petunia did not, but her shoulders eased. When they left, she paused at the door. "My sister loved you," she said abruptly. Not kindly, not cruelly. Just as fact. Snape inclined his head. "I know." That night, the dreams were quieter. Months passed. The Ash Lords movement faded, not erased, but weakened. Ideas fractured without leadership. Others picked up the fragments, but without coherence. History moved on, as it always did, imperfect and unfinished. One spring morning, Harry visited again. No urgency this time. No crisis. "They're offering me a position abroad," Harry said. "Teaching, defense." Snape raised an eyebrow. "Running away, choosing," Harry corrected. "I learned that from you." Snape considered that. "In silence, then go. Do it well, and do not let them turn you into a symbol." Harry smiled. "I won't." As he left, Snape felt something close to pride. It unsettled him. He let it stay anyway. On the anniversary of the Battle of Hogwarts, there was a small ceremony. Snape did not attend. Instead, he walked the edge of the lake, watching the water move without direction, yet always forward. For the first time, his survival felt earned. He was not redeemed, not forgiven by all. But he was honest, and he was alive, and that, Severus, Snape decided, would have to be enough. The years did not soften Severus Snape the way people liked to imagine time softened things. He did not become warmer. He did not smile more. What changed was quieter than that. The sharp edges stopped cutting. Quite so deeply, mostly because he stopped pressing them against himself. He aged into himself. The small house near Hogsmeade became known unofficially as a place people went when they had nowhere else to turn. Not advertised, not acknowledged. Word traveled in murmurs. A former Auror with shaking hands. A witch whose magic flared unpredictably after captivity. A student expelled for experimenting too, close to the dark and now terrified of what they had awakened. Snape helped when he could, refused when he must. He never promised absolution. "You do not come here to be forgiven," he told them. "You come here to be honest. Forgiveness is your own problem." Some left angry. Some left changed. One evening, while reorganizing a shelf he had avoided for years, Snape uncovered an old bottle of potion. Faded label. His handwriting. Lily's notes scribbled in the margins, arguing with his ratios. He sat down heavily, the weight of it unexpected. For the first time, he did not feel the urge to punish himself for remembering her. The memory was still painful, but it was no longer a wound. It was a scar. And scars, he had learned, meant healing had happened, even if poorly. Hogwarts continued without him. Better in some ways, worse in others. New teachers came and went. Slytherin slowly lost its reputation as a breeding ground for darkness, though suspicion lingered like smoke in old stone. Once a year, Snape gave a lecture. Not on magic. On choice, he never used his own story. He never needed to. On a quiet afternoon, long after the world had decided what he was and moved on, Snape received a visitor he did not expect. A portrait. Dumbledore's portrait. Carefully wrapped and carried by a ministry official who looked profoundly uncomfortable. The headmaster's painted eyes twinkled as annoyingly as ever. "It seems," Dumbledore said cheerfully, once mounted, "that you survived in ways I did not anticipate." Snape stared at him. "You planned my death. I planned your sacrifice," Dumbledore corrected gently. "You chose survival." Snape's voice was flat. "You used me," Miss Dumbledore said simply. "And so did you." The honesty disarmed him more than any apology could have. "I am sorry," Dumbledore added. "Not for the plan. For the cost." Snape considered the painted face. Years ago, this conversation would have ended in rage. Now, it ended in something else. "Do not mistake my peace for forgiveness," Snape said. "I would never," Dumbledore replied. The portrait was left in Snape's study. They did not speak often. When they did, it was about students. About mistakes. About the limits of good intentions. One morning, the sunlight crept across the floor. Snape realized something that would have horrified his younger self. He was content, not happy, not joyful, but settled, like a potion finally left to cool at the right moment. Severus Snape survived the Battle of Hogwarts, and in doing so, he learned the hardest magic of all, how to die for a cause, but how to live without one.